So, some interesting news came out today, guys. I think some of you saw this already, but that is that Nintendo is allowing developers to use the Switch in, say, handheld mode only. So this basically means that if you have a game that needs a touchscreen, you would use it in handheld mode. I think a lot of us were looking at the touchscreen and we were trying to figure out, well, how would they use that in dock mode? Because you're going to touch it, obviously. It has 10-point touch even, I believe, and if that's the case, how would you then replicate that same thing on the TV screen? Well, apparently you really can't, and they are allowing developers to also forego the entire docking situation by plugging into a TV and just doing handheld mode. So real quick, let's actually talk about the game that's really started this whole thing, and that is a game called Voez. It's a Japanese rhythm action game. It uses the Switch's touchscreen because that's just how these rhythm games usually work in this case. Otherwise, games like DDR, you need a mat and everything to do it. Otherwise, in this case, you use the touchscreen, so you just hit points as they show up on the screen, and it looks pretty cool. I mean, it's a cool looking game, I will say that. I haven't played it yet. I know it's been out before, I believe, and this is kind of like a port to the Switch, and that's fine. And the reason I say it's okay to do handheld mode only is because it does give the system kind of a versatility for games that can come over that maybe wouldn't work in docked mode, but it would work in handheld mode. I actually think it would be worse if they let them do docked mode only, because that would kind of defeat the purpose of the Switch to be able to move around. However, based on a lot of reports so far, it appears that the Switch plays games in handheld mode better than it does in docked mode, which I believe personally is thanks to the 720p resolution, and that makes a lot of sense. I've said it before, 720p, a lot easier to push along than 900p or even 1080p in this case, and it's fine because that now developers can look at it and say, well, I wasn't going to bring my touchscreen based game over to the Switch despite it having a touchscreen, because how would I make it work in dock mode? You don't have to. You can basically flip a switch, I guess, turn off dock mode. I assume when you plug it into dock mode, it'll say you need to take this out and use it in handheld mode, otherwise it won't work. But this at least answers our question, how would a game work with the touchscreen in dock mode? It won't. It'll just, you got to use handheld mode. This does bring into the question, though, guys, how would something like Mario Maker work on this system? Because obviously a game like Mario Maker works better with a big screen where you can edit levels. Maybe you can only play levels when it's in docked mode and you have to edit them outside of that with handheld mode. People have talked about using the IR pointer. I don't know how well that would work. It might work okay for something like Mario Maker, but it might be a little less it might be a little more inaccurate compared to if you have obviously a way to touch the screen straight up right in front of you. That'd be more accurate. But I don't really know how they'd bring that over. Maybe they don't have plans of bringing over Mario Maker, which would be a shame because Mario Maker is extremely popular. And I think that type of genre, that kind of that building game would go well with something like even Zelda or even like a Metroid. There's a lot of places they could take that if they could figure out how to make it work on the Switch. But at least we know that if there are handheld games that would not work well with dock mode, developers can turn that off. This is good because Nintendo seems, from what I can tell, to be bending over backwards to bring third parties and developers on board with the Switch. I mean, they are doing everything they can, even kind of going back on what the idea of the Switch is, just to bring people in. I mean, they probably wanted to bring this game over, and Nintendo was like, you know what? Don't worry about dock mode. Bring it over. We'll make it so it only works in handheld mode for Voez, and you're good. So this isn't really a bad thing. A lot of people seem to be kind of painting this light of, oh no, this is bad because you can't play in dock mode. Well, you know what? I don't know how you play it anyway in dock mode, and it's better to have the game there than not at all. So look at it that way, guys. At least more games are coming to the Switch. Like I said, if you're a big Nintendo fan, you should be happy that Nintendo seems to be bending over backwards, like I said, to bring developers on board. So this will be interesting going forward to see if any other games, possibly even, to be honest, guys, from mobile platforms, make their way over. Maybe Hearthstone comes over. You never know, because you have that touchscreen. It's a console that can be moved around in handheld mode. Why not bring some of these very popular games from mobile platforms over to it, at least give us the option. If you don't want it, you just don't buy it. That's all. You don't download it. But if you have something like Hearthstone where you can just download it and play it, that seems kind of cool, actually. So why not? I say, you know what? Whatever you want to bring to the Switch, bring it over. Let the fan base decide if they want it or not. And if they don't, that's fine. At least you brought it over. And that's it for this one, guys. I just want to make a quick video talking about it. I think it's a great idea. I just hope that games don't aren't forced to handheld mode when they don't have to be, just because a developer doesn't feel like designing for docked mode as well. That's my one concern here, is that a developer who wants to get a cheap buck, put the game on the Switch, maybe it's easier just to design for handheld mode and not even worry about docked mode. I hope that's not the case. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope Nintendo at least patrols that and says, look, it needs to also work on docked mode if it can. You're not using the touchscreen, so it needs to be docked mode as well. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I will see you next time.